McKenna. I'm with Neosho County Community College, and welcome to the Health Fair. Today we will be talking about sex in the media. So sex in the media has evolved significantly over the years. A once unmentionable subject has become more common on television shows and in the movies, as well as song lyrics. With increased use of social media, adolescents spend more time exposing themselves to sexual messages and content. Easy access to explicit material and frequent exposure to sex in media has proven to have psychological and risky behavioral effects on children and teenagers. In this presentation, we will explore the evolution of sex in the media and what parental involvement can do to improve communication and open a dialogue about the topic of sex in the media with youth and adolescents. Thank you for joining us.
Hiya. I'm going to talk about the history of TV and the things that were taboo prior to the 70s. In the 50s, I Love Lucy had Desi and Lucy obviously married, but they were not allowed to sleep in the same bed. They had twin beds, and when Lucy was pregnant, they showed her pregnant in maternity clothes, but she was not allowed to say the word pregnant. So the word pregnant was never mentioned. So then you go on to the 60s, and there's the Flintstones. So obviously a cartoon, and it was sort of the same in that when Wilma was pregnant, she wore maternity clothes, and she also did not use the word pregnant. Nobody did, but her and Fred slept in the same bed. So with the 70s came the sexual revolution, and with that, TV reflected it. A lot of things that were once taboo were mentioned and talked about. The Mary Tyler Moore Show, for example, Mary, it was known that she slept with her boyfriends. She used birth control, and one of the characters, he was actually a date for a sister's friend or something like that. Anyway, he was gay, and they announced that he was gay. So the 70s definitely changed everything. But since then, I guess people have been desensitized to sex in the media, and over time, it just progressed to where people really don't. I mean, the media really doesn't. I guess what I say, monitor it as much, or they allow more as far as what to talk about, things they show. So that's all I have.
Hi, I'm Haley, and I'm talking about sex in the media and how it has changed. American children and teenagers spend more than 7 hours a day with a variety of different media sources. These medias are filled with a sexual message and images, many of which are unrealistic. On TV, which remains the predominant medium in terms of time spent for all youth, more than 75% of prime time programs contain sexual content. Yet only 14% of sexual incidences mention any risk or responsibility of sexual activity. Talk about sex on TV can occur as often as 8 to 10 times per hour. Between 1997 and 2001 alone, the amount of sexual content on TV nearly doubled. So-called reality TV has also entered the picture. In 1997, there were only 3 reality dating shows. By 2004, there were more than 30. Virtually every rated R teen movie since the 1980s has contained at least one sex scene, and often several instances of sexual intercourse. Teen movies also contain distorted views of romance and normal adolescent sexuality. Advertisements often use sex to sell. Women are likely to be shown in suggestive clothing 35%, particularly clothed 13%, or nude 6%, as they are to be fully clothed. Because so many sex education programs have recently been focused on abstinence only, the media has arguably become one of the leading sex educators in the United States today. The most recent studies have revealed that 1. Listening to sexually degrading lyrics is associated with either sexual intercourse. 2. Black female teenagers exposed to rap music, videos, or X-rated movies is associated with the likelihood of multiple sex partners or testing positive for STIs. 3. Teenagers whose parents control their TV viewing habits are less sexually experienced. And 4. Exposure to sexual content in the media is a significant factor and the initiation to have sex in the near future. Major findings concerning the nature and impact of sexual content in mainstream entertainment media, with a focus on empirical studies and content analysis, indicate that sexual content is prevalent in mainstream media, appearing in approximately 85% of films and 82% of all television programs. One type of sexual content that is consistently minimal and absent is the content about the risk and responsibilities of sex, such as discussing safe sex practices, depictions of condoms use, or discussing about disease prevention programs, noted to feature sexual content. 2.9% contain messages of sexual patients, and 5.2 mention.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I'll be talking about the implications of sex on TV. There are two main implications. The first one is that there's a general consensus that frequent exposure to media with sexual content can lead to unquestionable expectations in romantic relationships and can contribute to risky sexual behaviors in children and adolescents. This is due to the following factors. Children learn through the media about what is considered to be acceptable sexual behavior. Much of what is on TV, the characters engage in carefree sexual behavior without depicting any potential negative consequences. And these characters are often glamorized in ways that inspire kids and adults to be like them. The second factor is that when you're exposed to pornography, often children have difficulties distinguishing between the fictional characters and behaviors they see in real life situations. It also leads children to have unrealistic views on how their body should look. The third factor would be media can often be the main or only source of information about sexuality for children and teens. Unrealistic portrayals of sexual behavior in the media, combined with less alternate sources of factual information about sexuality and appropriate behaviors, can lead to children using media as a sexual super peer that may encourage them to be sexually active, take risks, and or adopt these beliefs as their own. The second implication is that it also is widely believed that TV plays a role in hastening or increasing the probability of initiation of sexual activity in teens. A study showed that heavy exposure to sexual content on television related strongly to teens' initiation of intercourse or their progression to more advanced sexual activities. And it showed that they are 2 times more likely than those who viewed a small amount of sexual activity to partake in sexual intercourse the following year.
Hi, I'm Wendy, and I'm going to talk about how parent-child interactions regarding sexual content exposure can influence behaviors. Research has shown that exposure to sexual content on television may be a contributing factor of increased sexual activity among teens. According to a study published in Pediatrics, exposure to both depictions of sexual acts and discussion of sexual acts predicts reports of increased sexual activity from the teenagers interviewed in the study. In some populations, depictions of sexual risks or safety acted as a protective factor, reducing the likelihood of initiation of sexual activity in the following year. Therefore, this study recommended reducing exposure to sexual content or increasing realistic consequences depicted in entertainment targeted towards teens. Another factor that influenced adolescent sexual contact was parental involvement. Teens who watched the television shows with their parents and then discussed the content, along with the parents' beliefs about the behavior depicted, reported a reduced rate of sexual activity. As part of this presentation, we would like to provide you with a tool to use to begin a family discussion about sexual content on television. Please take enough copies of the worksheet for each parent and teenager to have their own form. Next, as a family, watch a popular TV show targeted to the teen or young adult audience. As you watch the show, answer the questions. After you watch the show, answer the questions individually on the worksheets. This will provide a starting point for a family discussion about the television content and your feelings about it. Allow each person the opportunity to tell his or her feelings about the show and the messages portrayed. Parents should take this opportunity to explain their beliefs about sex, but should also be open to hearing their children's opinions. Open communication by all parties will result in a more productive conversation.
I'm Rachel. As you can see, sex on TV is more than just images. In the early days of television, sex wasn't even implied. Married couples slept in separate beds on screen, and the word pregnant wasn't said. This is vastly different from today's television, where sexual acts and provocativeness are frequently shown to some degree. And movie ratings have loosened regarding language. R ratings and NC-17 for nudity and sex scenes in movies has remained fairly consistent. Because the way that we consume media has changed so much, movies and television programs are in abundance and easily accessible. With this comes normalization of the behaviors we are frequently seeing, including sexuality and sexual acts. Art both reflects and influences culture. It is important for us to be able to be aware and critically analyze what we are seeing and how it factors into our own interpretations of sex and sexual relations. This is especially true for youths, because they are particularly at risk to be influenced by their exposure to sexual scenes and portrayals in television. It is up to adults to help guide them through this exploration. Using the information and the tools we have discussed with you today should help adults approach this sensitive topic and create an open dialogue and communication that promotes healthy sexual choices for children, students, and patients.